I don't think you should grow your business for the hell of it during a recession, because I think that there is a likelihood of increasing your exposure to risk, and I think that what a recession is to do with is managing risk. The risks are to do with our sales holding up. If our sales drop, then our costs suddenly are terribly exposed.
We've got to drive business forward, and we've got to be aggressive in our pricing. I went to a lecture at Barclays the other day, and they said, look, you've simply got to get used to making less money.
Focus very, very much on what makes somebody buy from you rather than anybody else, and really get into the mind of the consumer. You understand why people buy from you and not somebody else. Then you should communicate that out to other people.
Better value, that's what it's all about in 2009.
I think most of the risks that we have are to do with our own internal issues about cash management, about launching new products, about currency fluctuation is certainly a risk, it's certainly an area of concern for us.
There's no point in working 18 hours a day and churning out a product, whether it's wine or any other product, and not keeping an eye on the absolute fundamentals, which is the strength of the pound as an importer or the strength of the pound as an exporter.
Most suppliers won't give you a fixed exchange rate for any length of time. It's difficult for them to hedge, and especially if they're exporting suppliers, you're talking about them hedging dollar to sterling, and now that's something that they really aren't going to be very interested in.
What's extraordinary about the situation now is it's so fast, there's fall, and obviously we've had a second wave of the crash of sterling. It dropped to 101.93 just before New Year's Eve, and wow, that's really frightening as an importer. Obviously the dollar's come off from about 2, gone down to, I think it's 136 or thereabouts today. These are massive swings, massive cycles, and it's very, very scary.
What we've had to do is to go out and investigate the instruments that we can use to be able to hedge that risk for ourselves.
There's been a surplus of wine made in certain countries, in particular New Zealand. The New Zealand dollar feels like it might come under a bit of attack, so now we are switching our focus maybe away from Europe, where the wines are now looking comparatively expensive, and looking elsewhere. And South Africa and New Zealand are big targets for us to hit, and we have done. We got shipments on the water now. We've got to keep an eye on what's going on in other countries. For example, one of my French suppliers said to me the other day, look, I'm not going to drop the price on what we sell to you, quite simply because we've just had a huge order from Moscow. And I'm thinking, okay, well, this is all part of globalization, but I did inform him there and then that the Moscow Stock Exchange had dropped by 73.1% last year, and there was quite a lot of silence at the other end of the phone, and he clearly hadn't have copped that.
I think the biggest change is keeping cash in the business. We've always been aware of that as an absolute necessity, but it's become much more extreme now. Looking at plans ahead, we are more costive. I think that vanity projects are thrown into the very cold, hard light of day at the moment and are very easy to discard.
I think actually in some ways the business environment seems much worse from the outside than it does from the inside. If you're a small business particularly, there's a lot more that you can do internally to fix your own problems. So I think that for smaller businesses, it's really about focusing back on what you do best, what you're about, what makes you special, and why customers come to you.
There's always ways to spend money, and I think one's got to all the time hold back and be conservative about that. Not get the new telephone system. Only get things that are going to actually bring money into the business. So, invest in a website, but don't invest in a new front door knob. And you've got to be looking for investment that's actually going to yield immediate results at the moment, because cash is the key.
In terms of gaining new customers and getting repeat visits from customers, the single most important thing is customer service. And one of the things that we've seen more and more often is that if you let somebody down on their order, you don't see them again.
Do not bury your head in the sand. Do not sit on this. Do something. Be brave. Do it now. You may make mistakes, but I would suggest a lack of dynamism in your decision making is probably the biggest mistake any manager or any director, board of directors could make now. You have got to be brave and get on with it.